You know what this roster could use? That roster could use a few Gregg Anthony types to improve that defense at the point of attack. Instead, he'll be calling the Cavs Heat along with Kevin McHale and Rip Hamilton tonight on TNT. And as you can see, Gregg is with us here on Game Time. You and I have had this discussion about Cleveland's defense before. You've made the point that they don't necessarily have to be an elite team statistically if they can get stops in key moments. As things stand right now, I'll put it to you as well. Is the D good enough to win 3 series and reach a 4th straight finals?
It's not today, but I think they have the pieces that will allow them to be better. The one thing that gets lost in all of the moves that they've made over the course of this season, they are infinitely more athletic. And that's going to play a big role. The 2 things that they lacked last year were the ability to get easy baskets and their ability to get back with defensive transition. And I think those are 2 areas that with time, remember this group's still kind of new. They don't get to practice. They've had injuries within the new guys they brought on. When you think about George Hill and Larry Nance Jr. has been out, Rodney Hood's been out for a stretch. They just got Kevin Love back. So they haven't been able to put all of the different kinds of schemes that they're going to want to put in. The other thing you got to remember also, as good as Golden State has been, they're not as good defensively as they've been in the past either. The one team that's made the big jump defensively has been the Houston Rockets. But I do think the personnel, the fit with this roster is going to allow them to get better when it matters most, which is in a couple more weeks. So I think Cleveland is heading in the right direction. Listen, again, they're not going to be a top 5 defense, but if they get to a point where they're a top 10 or 12, remember, they've been the last 2 years in the bottom, basically the bottom third, the bottom fourth of the league. If they get to the middle of the league, that makes a big difference because offensively they are a top-tier team. So everything's relative from a defensive standpoint. And to your point, Matt, they got to be able to play defense in 2-3-minute stretches where they can create some separation or make up a difference. The other thing they've improved, look at their bench overall production this year compared to where it was a year ago with the new additions they've made. So I think they're a much better team than they were a year ago, and a year ago they made it to the finals. So I really don't see a scenario where they're not going to get back there again this season.
Well, Greg, it's a little different this year. Now they're going to drop from like 3 to number 4. They're not in that 1 and 2. They don't have the home court advantage. So what is going to be the difference this year going through that? Because they're going to have some tough games where they're going to have to win on the road. And without that defense and that offense, I don't know. It might not be there at times. They need stops when they're on the road to get back to the finals.
Well, GP, you're 100% right. They're going to have to get stops. Winning on the road for them, I don't think is going to be as difficult as some might. And you've been there, GP. When you were at your best and your teams were great, you never worried about winning on the road. Like you knew you were always going to be good enough to beat anybody at least once in their building. And this Cleveland team is no different. I mean, they no matter who they play with, let's just stay in the East for now. Every night they take the floor, they got the best player on the floor. And the other thing they're going to have now is they're going to have a lot more athleticism. I was talking with Larry G earlier. He said, man, just to see how much faster we are right now, their ability to get to loose balls. They didn't have that a season ago. Remember who all they had to replace? They replaced Channing Frye, Richard Jefferson, Darren Williams, guys who are mid-30s, late 30s who were slow and not athletic that they were asking to make athletic plays. Now, they don't have the experience that some of those guys have, but they do have the ability to make some of those athletic plays that they couldn't in the past. Now, they've got to get better defensively, and they have the other advantage of having a good couple weeks to improve in those areas. And my X factor for this team is a guy named Jeff Green. I think he's the one guy that sometimes gets lost. He's a big athletic guy who can play. He can play fast. And I think he's another guy that, again, that they didn't have these kind of players a season ago. And I think it's going to somewhat revitalize. And keep an eye on Kevin Love. I think Kevin Love's going to play his best basketball as a Cleveland Cavalier under the way this team is now constructed, because he now becomes, for the first time since he's been here, the next guy up in terms of who they look for to create offense. And I think Kevin Love is going to embrace that role.
A home game tonight for Gregg Anthony, who made a short drive from the Anthony compound there in South Florida for tonight's Cavaliers Heat contest. We'll see you at the top of the hour on TNT.
All right, guys. Enjoy.